Welcome back to my channel. In 1999, the United States Mint found itself at a pivotal moment. The new millennium loomed just over the horizon, and public interest in coinage was surging thanks to the freshly launched 50-state quarters program. Amid this renewed enthusiasm, the humble Roosevelt dime, unchanged in design for decades, continued to roll off the presses. Millions of dimes were struck that year, many never given a second glance. They clinked into pockets, slipped between couch cushions, disappeared into vending machines. No one could have predicted that one of these ordinary coins, so overlooked and so small, would eventually challenge expectations and ignite a mystery in the world of coin collectors. The Philadelphia Mint had been operating under immense pressure. With production schedules tight and errors more likely under such strain, not every flaw was caught. Somewhere in that flow of machinery and molten metal, a single dime was created. Unlike any other dot, it wasn't discovered right away. In fact, it would take over a decade for this particular coin to surface. And when it did, it wasn't found in a vault, or a collector's case, or even a coin roll. It turned up in a parking lot in Tulsa, Oklahoma, picked up by a man named Marcus Flynn while he fished for change to feed a meter. At first, it was just another dime. Slightly dull, maybe a little worn. But something about it made him pause. The edge. There was something odd about the reeded border, something incomplete. He turned it in his hand. The image of Franklin D. Roosevelt looked fine, but the words, liberty, and in God we trust, on the obverse seemed shifted, unnaturally close to the coin's edge. On the reverse, the torch, olive branch, and oak branch design appeared unusually off-center. And most striking of all, the coin's rim was missing entirely on one side. Marcus didn't know much about coins, but he was curious. That night, under the yellow light of his kitchen, he placed the dime under a magnifying glass and compared it with others. The difference was undeniable. One side of the coin had a broad strike, a type of error that happens when a coin is struck without the retaining collar, allowing the metal to expand outward beyond its standard diameter. The result, a stretched, flattened edge, missing the usual ridges and giving the coin a bloated appearance. Still, curiosity didn't mean certainty. He posted images online, wondering if others had seen anything like it. Responses ranged from skeptical to stunned. While broad strikes weren't entirely unheard of, a Roosevelt dime from 1999 with such a clean and well-centered broad strike was remarkably rare, especially one that remained uncirculated enough to preserve the details so clearly. Collectors took notice. Marcus, now intrigued beyond mere casual interest, decided to have the coin professionally graded. Weeks passed. Then the verdict arrived. MS-65 with a confirmed broad strike error, no damage, no post-mint alterations. The authenticity sent a ripple through a few niche collecting circles. This dime, once lying in a dusty parking lot, had quietly become a star. The first offers were modest, a few $100s. Then came a dealer from Arizona offering $1,500, citing its exceptional preservation. Marcus, unsure of its full value, held off. He began reading, attending coin shows, even subscribing to collector publications. He was no longer just the guy who'd found a dime. He was now part of a much larger world. Over the years, similar coins emerged, but none quite matched the clarity of the error Marcus had found. Some had off-center strikes, others bore faint traces of collar failure, but Marcus's dime stood out for its precision. A misstep in the minting process that resulted in a coin both flawed and strangely perfect. As the story of his find spread, so did its legend. The dime was nicknamed the Wide One in coin forums, a reference to its expanded diameter from the broad strike. It passed through several showcases, always encased, always handled with gloves. The broad strike, initially overlooked, became a point of study among error coin experts. What made this particular 1999 dime so striking wasn't just the error, It was how well preserved it was despite its odd birth. Then, another twist emerged. An archive report from the Philadelphia Mint surfaced through a Freedom of Information Act request filed by a collectors advocacy group. The report referenced a brief machinery issue during April of 1999 that caused several pressings to bypass the collar die due to improper feed alignment. According to the document, the malfunction lasted only minutes before it was corrected. But in those minutes, several coins may have escaped detection. No official count was made. The issue was minor, brushed aside at the time, and never made public until now. Suddenly, the wide one wasn't just a fluke. It was part of a hidden batch, an invisible moment in the Mint's history, preserved in metal. That revelation spurred a new wave of interest. Collectors combed their change. Dealers revisited inventories. A few new examples surfaced, similar but not identical. One had clear stretching but significant wear. Another had a partial broad strike but lacked legible details. None matched Marcus's dime in clarity or preservation, and as demand grew, so did its value. An auction house in Chicago reached out. Their specialists reviewed the dime and placed it among the top Roosevelt dime errors of the modern era. They projected a range $18,000 to $25,000, but privately suspected it might go higher if the right bidders showed up. When the auction opened, initial bids crept up steadily $9,000, then $11,500. At $16,000, things slowed. Then came a new bidder. Anonymous. Remote. Their counter moved the price in one stroke to $23,000. Within minutes, a bidding war erupted, with two determined collectors pushing the number higher. Gasps filled the auction room as the number crossed $30,000, then $34,000. In the final moments, a single bid silenced the room. $38,500. The gavel dropped. The dime, once picked up off a street, once mistaken for ordinary, had become the most valuable broad-strike Roosevelt dime on record. Today, the 1999 Roosevelt dime continues to pass through hands unnoticed in its normal form. Most people don't look twice. But for those who know where to look, who examine each coin not for its face value, but for its story, the year 1999 holds a quiet legend. A dime born of error, caught between precision and mistake, stretched just enough to stand apart from the millions beside it. In 1981, the Roosevelt dime had already become an unassuming fixture in American currency. Small, silver-colored, and often forgotten, it carried the same portrait it had since 1946, honoring the president who led the country through the Great Depression and World War II. As the country neared the close of a decade marked by inflation and shifting economic tides, the U.S. Mint operated steadily, pressing millions of dimes in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Most of these coins would quietly disappear into cash registers, pockets, and piggy banks. But amid the endless flow of ordinary coins, something unusual happened. The San Francisco Mint, known for producing proof coins, handled its responsibilities with extreme care. Proof coins weren't made for circulation. They were struck multiple times with specially prepared dies to produce sharper detail and a mirror-like surface. But even under the most controlled circumstances, mistakes happened. Somewhere in the late spring of that year, an error slipped through the precision and the polish. An error no one noticed. At first, years passed. The coin, despite being a proof, had somehow escaped into circulation. It wasn't kept in a collector's capsule or coin folder. It passed from hand to hand, used like any other. And yet, its error remained intact, surviving unnoticed. It wasn't until 2005 that a woman named Delia Monroe stumbled across it at a small flea market in Vermont. She ran a modest antique booth and paid for a vintage tin with change from her purse. The seller, needing exact change, picked through a pile of dimes and returned one to her. It looked different. The surface gleamed, even under the tinted shade of the market stall, and it reflected the light in a way no normal dime ever did. Delia, who had been casually collecting coins since childhood, turned it over. Her fingers froze. The edge, which should have shown the usual reeded texture, was unusually smooth on one side. And more importantly, the coin was missing something crucial, the mint mark. She took the coin home and examined it under her jeweler's loupe. Everything else looked right. Roosevelt's image was sharp. The reverse design was fully struck. The surfaces had that mirrored sheen typical of proof coins. And yet, where the S mint mark from San Francisco should have been, there was nothing. Just blank space. Clean. Undisturbed, Delia contacted a numismatics expert she'd met years earlier at a coin show. He confirmed her suspicion. This was a 1981 S-proof dime, missing the S mint mark, what collectors call a no S proof. And in the world of coin collecting, a missing mint mark on a proof coin is no small matter. In normal circulation coins, missing mint marks occasionally happen due to die wear or debris. But proof coins are handled with such care that any deviation suggests a remarkable slip. A proof coin missing its mint mark indicates that the die use was never properly marked before striking began. This particular oversight resulted in a few dozen, perhaps even fewer, no S dimes escaping detection. Delia had unknowingly stumbled upon a major rarity. The coin was sent to a third-party grading service. The result? PR68 Deep Cameo, a near-perfect condition proof with strong contrasts between frosted devices and mirror-like fields. Its value skyrocketed immediately. Collectors familiar with the 1975 and 1970 no S proof dimes knew what this meant. This coin wasn't just rare, it was one of the few known surviving examples. But the story didn't stop there. In an archived internal mint memorandum dated October 1981, it was revealed that the San Francisco facility had undergone several die changes that month. One die set, lacking the S mint mark, had briefly entered production. According to records, the issue was caught within hours, and most of the error coins were pulled and destroyed. Most, but clearly not all. This 1981 no S dime had become living proof of that oversight. What fascinated collectors wasn't just the error, it was the journey the coin had taken. Instead of being preserved in a collector's set, it had mingled with ordinary coins for over 20 years. It had lived a life of anonymity, its value hidden beneath the illusion of commonality. Delia was offered 5 figures within a month. She refused. Not because she didn't need the money, but because something about the coin story had settled into her bones. The idea that something so small, so seemingly insignificant, could carry such weight, it moved her. She displayed the coin briefly at a New England coin show. There, it attracted the attention of specialists who had spent years searching for missing mint mark proofs. They confirmed what had already become legend. There were likely fewer than 250 of these known to exist, with fewer than 50 in high-grade condition. Over time, word spread. Online forums debated its possible origins. Some claimed it had to be part of a limited run accidentally shipped out in the early 1980s. Others suspected it came from a proof set whose packaging was damaged, the coin separated and lost to time. Theories aside, the value climbed. By 2012 offers past $25,000, then $40,000. Still, Delia waited. She kept the coin in a safe deposit box, visiting it occasionally like an old friend. The demand continued to grow, especially as modern collectors turned their attention to proof coin errors, one of the few areas of numismatics where new discoveries could still genuinely shake the market. Finally, in 2024, Delia agreed to sell. The coin was listed at a private auction, not through the usual public channels, but in an exclusive sale to advanced collectors only. It attracted immediate interest. Phone lines buzzed. Previews were held by appointment only. The bidding began at $60,000. It quickly escalated. 3 serious contenders emerged, each with a history of pursuing proof error coins. The bids passed $80,000, then $90,000. Delia sat quietly in the corner, hands clasped. She had grown older since that flea market afternoon, but her eyes had lost none of their spark. When the final bid was called, the number stunned everyone. $106,000. The gavel came down. The 1981 Noah's Roosevelt dime, once passed in casual change at a flea market, had become one of the most valuable proof error coins ever sold. Not because of gold or silver content, not because of age, but because of a single, absent letter and the untold story that followed it for decades.